Use headphones for a better experience.
When I moved into my new apartment, I was just looking for a fresh start, a quiet place to rebuild my life. Instead, I found myself drawn into a nightmare. It began with a neighbor I couldn't see but couldn't escape. What I discovered about her would haunt me forever. I moved into a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. The building was old but charming in a creaky, historical way. My neighbors were polite but distant, except for one. The first time I heard her was the day I unpacked. I was dragging a box into my living room when I heard soft laughter through the wall. It was warm and inviting, like someone watching a funny movie. I smiled, glad to know at least one neighbor had a sense of humor. A week later, I was putting up shelves when I heard her again. This time she was singing, a hauntingly beautiful melody that gave me goosebumps. I pressed my ear to the wall to listen, but the moment I did, she stopped. Curious, I decided to introduce myself. I knocked on her door, apartment 304. No one answered. A few minutes later, I ran into the landlord in the hallway. "Oh, 304?" he said, scratching his head. "No one's lived there in years. The place is empty." I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking, but his face remained serious. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the building felt amplified, every shadow a possible intruder. At 2 a.m., I heard the laughter again, but it was louder this time, like it was right in my room. I turned on the lights, heart pounding. The laughter stopped, leaving only the sound of my own ragged breathing. Over the next few days, the noises escalated. Knocking on the walls, footsteps pacing in the hallway, whispers I couldn't quite make out. I started avoiding my apartment altogether, spending long hours at work or at the cafe down the street. One evening, as I unlocked my door, I found a note slipped under it. "You shouldn't have knocked." I froze. The handwriting was elegant, almost delicate. I ran to the landlord, demanding to know if anyone had access to my apartment. He assured me no one did, and even offered to change the locks. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed. I wasn't. That night, I decided to confront whatever, or whoever, was in 304. Armed with a flashlight and a makeshift weapon, I pushed the door open. The apartment was empty, just as the landlord had said. Dust-covered furniture, peeling wallpaper, and silence. But then I saw it, a mirror leaning against the far wall. It was tall and ornate, its glass somehow untouched by dust. As I approached, my reflection seemed off. The room reflected behind me wasn't the one I was standing in. Instead, it was a well-lit living room, and sitting in the chair behind me was a woman. I spun around, but no one was there. When I turned back to the mirror, the woman was standing, closer now, her face partially obscured by her long, dark hair, and she was smiling. Panicked, I ran back to my apartment and locked the door. The next morning, I found scratches on my side of the shared wall, like something, or someone, had been trying to claw through. The following nights were unbearable. My lights flickered constantly, objects moved on their own, and the laughter, it was everywhere. Desperate, I did some digging. I found an old news article about the building. Decades ago, a young woman named Clara had lived in 304. She was reclusive and rarely seen by neighbors. One day, her body was discovered in her apartment. She died alone, her face frozen in a haunting smile. The article mentioned a mirror, her only prized possession. Realizing the connection, I returned to 304, determined to destroy the mirror. But when I got there, it was gone. The landlord swore he'd never seen a mirror in the unit. That night, I woke up to find the mirror in my living room, leaning against the wall. I don't know how it got there. The woman was in the reflection again, standing directly behind me. "Why did you knock?" she whispered. I smashed the mirror with a hammer, shattering the glass into 1,000 pieces. But it didn't stop her. Now I see her in every reflection. Windows, screens, even puddles. She's always there, watching, waiting. I've moved 3 times since then, but she still follows me. I avoid mirrors and anything that can reflect her. This experience taught me a harsh lesson about curiosity and respect for the unknown. Some things are better left alone. In today's world, we're obsessed with exploring everything, peering into places and lives that aren't ours to disturb. But sometimes, when you look too closely, something looks back. So, if you ever hear laughter or whispers through your walls, don't knock.
Don't miss out on the scares. Go subscribe to the channel for terrifying stories, legend breakdowns, and more. Bell turn on notifications and experience horror like never before.